You wake to a silence so deep it feels alive, your breath a faint cloud in the dim light of a cabin where frost clings to the walls like a second skin. It's the late 1870s and you're a settler in the Wild West, somewhere on the vast, snow-draped plains of the Dakota Territory or perhaps Montana. Winter has come with a vengeance, its icy fingers curling through every crack in your small, hand-built home. The air bites at your nose, sharp and unforgiving. As you lie beneath a heavy quilt, its weight a fragile shield against the cold. You listen, heart quickening, for any sound, perhaps the howl of wind or the creak of the roof under snow, but there's only stillness, a quiet so heavy it presses against your chest. Can you survive this winter's grip? You shift on the straw mattress, the rustle of it loud in the hush. The wooden floor beneath your feet is like stepping onto a frozen pond, and you wince as the cold seeps through your wool socks. The cabin is small, maybe 12 feet by 12, its walls a patchwork of logs and mud you helped chink last fall. You remember the sweat of that labor, your hands raw from stacking timber, your neighbor a woman named Eliza with calloused fingers, and a determined smile showing you how to pack the gaps with clay. Now that work is all that stands between you and the endless white beyond the window, where snow stretches to the horizon, swallowing the world you knew. Outside, the plains are a sea of white, the rolling hills of summer buried under drifts that could hide a horse. The Dakota winters, you've learned, are not like those back east. Here, the cold is a living thing, a force that can steal your breath and freeze your eyelashes together in moments. In the 1870s, settlers like you faced temperatures that could plummet to 30 below, with blizzards that roared for days, cutting off towns and homesteads. The geography of this land, open, treeless, exposed, offers no mercy. The Missouri River, frozen solid, glints in the distance, a ribbon of ice under a gray sky. You wonder if the supplies you laid in will last, if the woodpile will hold until spring. You pull the quilt tighter, its patches sewn by your hands and those of your sister-in-law, who came with you to this frontier dreaming of a new life. The quilt tells story scraps of an old dress, a baby's blanket, a shirt worn thin by your husband's labor. Each stitch holds a memory, a tether to warmth and hope. You think of the families across these plains, ordinary people like you homesteaders, women, children who wake each morning to this same chill. Women, especially, carry the weight of survival, tending fires, mending clothes, stretching meager stores of flour and beans. Their resilience is quiet but fierce, like the glow of a lantern in a storm. You rise, your joints stiff, and move to the window. Frost has painted it with delicate branching patterns, beautiful but cruel. You scrape a small circle clear with your fingernail and peer out. The world is a blur of white, the barn a faint shadow 50 yards away. You know the story settlers lost in blizzards, wandering just steps from safety, their bodies found frozen when the snow melts. The thought sends a shiver through you, not just from cold, but from the vastness of this land, its beauty matched only by its danger. How did so many endure? You turn to the hearth where embers glow faintly from last night's fire. You'll need to coax it back to life soon, but for now you pause, letting the silence settle. The Wild West of the 1870s and 1880s was no myth of cowboys and outlaws. Alone, it was this, the daily fight against nature's might. Families like yours, scattered across Montana or the Dakotas, built lives from grit and ingenuity. The cold tested them, but so did their hope, their stubborn belief in a future here. You feel it too, that spark, as you reach for kindling, ready to face another day. This winter will demand everything, your strength, your cunning, your heart. But as you kneel by the hearth, you sense the stories of those who came before, their lives woven into this land. If this glimpse into their world resonates with you, consider subscribing for more stories that bring history to life. What's a winter survival tip you've heard from the past? For now, you focus on the embers, knowing each small flame is a victory, a step toward spring. The cold is fierce, but so are you. The wind howls outside, a low moan that rattles the world beyond your reach. But your hands are busy, every sodbreak you lay is a promise of warmth. How did families turn the unforgiving prairie into a home? It's late fall in the Dakota Territory, 1878, and you're a settler, standing on a patch of earth that's yours by law but not yet by comfort. The winter looms, a shadow growing longer each day, and your task is to build a shelter that can stand against its fury. The air smells of damp soil and frost, and your fingers ache from the cold as you slice through the prairie grass with a spade. You're building a sod house, a soddy, as your neighbor Mary calls it. She's a wiry woman with a laugh that cuts through the wind, and she's teaching you how to carve bricks from the tough, root-bound earth. The prairie offers little wood, but its sod thick with grass roots is plentiful. You lift a heavy, damp block, its edges crumbling slightly, and place it in a row, stacking it like a child's toy, but with the weight of survival. The texture is rough, gritty against your palms, and bits of grass cling to your sleeves. Mary hums a hymn as she works beside you, her hands steady despite the chill. She tells you how her mother built their first soddy alone when her father fell ill, layering walls 2 feet thick to keep out the cold. Each brick feels like a small defiance against the winter. You learn to stagger them like a mason to make the walls strong. The sod is heavy and your shoulders burn, but there's a rhythm to it, a quiet satisfaction in shaping the earth. You pause to wipe sweat from your brow, though the air stings your face. The plains stretch endlessly around you, a sea of fading grass under a sky heavy with the threat of snow. In the 1870s and 1880s, settlers like you across Nebraska and Montana turned to sod because it was their free, sturdy, and oddly insulating. A well-built soddy could keep you warmer than a wooden shack, its thick walls muffling the wind's roar. But not all homes are sod. Some neighbors, luckier ones near timber, build log cabins. You visited one last week, helping a family chink their walls with mud and straw. The logs smelled of pine, their surfaces rough under your hands as you pressed clay into the gaps. You think of Eliza, a young widow who shared her recipe for a chinking mixed mud. Hair from the horse's mane, even a bit of ash. She laughed, saying it's women's work to make a house a home, sealing every crack against the cold. Her cabin, though small, felt solid, its hearth already glowing with promise. You've heard of others using whatever they could old wagon canvas. Stacked stones, even snow packed around a lean-to for extra insulation. Snow, you've learned, can be a friend if you use it right, trapping warmth like a blanket. But it's a gamble, too. A blizzard could bury your door, trap you inside. The thought makes your chest tighten. You glance at the horizon where clouds gather like a warning. Winter in the Wild West was a test of ingenuity, and women like Mary and Eliza were its unsung architects, their hands shaping shelters from the raw stuff of the land. As you lay another sod brick, you feel the weight of hope and fear. This house must hold against blizzards that can last days, winds that tear at anything weak. You think of the Stories families huddling in half-built homes, praying the walls would stand. The work is slow, your fingers numb, but each layer is a step toward safety. You smooth the dirt with your hand, feeling its cool, solid promise. What must it have been like to trust your life to these walls? The sun dips low, casting a pale light over the prairie, and you step back to see your progress. The soddy's walls are rising, rough but proud. Mary nods, her eyes crinkling with approval. You share a moment of quiet, the wind's howl softening for now. This is the Wild West, not just a land of adventure, but of survival, where ordinary people built homes from earth and will. What do you think it was like to build a home with your bare hands in freezing cold? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep exploring history together. Hit subscribe. For now, you turn back to your work, knowing each brick brings you closer to a winter you can endure. The fire in your hearth is your lifeline, its glow the only warmth in a world of ice. But what do you burn when the trees are miles away? It's February 1880, and you're in a sod house on the Nebraska prairie, where the wind cuts like a blade and the cold seeps into your bones. The room is dim, lit only by the faint flicker of flames, their crackle a fragile song against the silence. You kneel by the hearth, the scent of smoke and earth filling your lungs, knowing that this small fire is all that stands between your family and the brutal winter outside. Your hands, rough from work, tremble slightly as you place another fuel source on the embers, careful not to waste a single spark. In this treeless land, firewood is a rare treasure. The nearest cottonwoods line a creek miles away, and hauling logs through snowdrifts is a task for warmer days. Instead, you rely on what the prairie offers, Buffalo chips, dried dung left by the great herds that once roamed here. You gather them in a sack, their dry, earthy smell clinging to your mittens. They burn hot and steady, but collecting them means braving the cold, your boots crunching through snow as you scan the ground. Your neighbor Clara, a woman with a quiet strength, taught you to spot the best ones, dry, compact, not too crumbled. She laughed, saying her children made a game of it, racing to fill baskets before their fingers froze. When buffalo chips run low, you turn to twisted hay, another trick of the plains. You sit by the hearth in the evenings, twisting dried grass into tight bundles, your hands moving in a rhythm that soothes your mind. The hay burns fast, too fast, filling the room with a sweet, grassy scent that fades quickly. You ration it carefully, knowing a single blizzard could trap you inside for days. In the 1870s and 1880s, families across Wyoming and Nebraska learned to stretch their fuel, women and children often taking charge of this task. Your daughter, barely 10, helps you now, her small hands twisting hay with a focus that makes your heart ache. She hums a tune, and you wonder how she finds lightness in this labor. The fire demands constant tending. You add a buffalo chip, watching it catch, the flames dancing in shades of orange and gold. The warmth kisses your face, a fleeting comfort that doesn't reach the corners of the room, where frost still clings to the walls. You think of stories you've heard of settlers who burned furniture or corn cobs when fuel ran out, of women like Martha, who kept her family alive by feeding the fire with pages from an old Bible, saving the last verses for hope. The emotional weight of this task presses on you, the knowledge that a dead fire could mean a frozen home. How did they carry this burden? Day after day. You rise to check the fuel pile by the door, a meager stack of hay twists and chips. The wind howls outside, rattling the sod walls, and you pull your shawl tighter. In these isolated homesteads, every family fought this battle alone, yet you feel connected to them, to the women and children who guarded the hearth. Last week, you traded a sack of chips with a neighbor for a few sticks of wood, a small act of community that warmed you as much as the fire itself. The prairie's scarcity taught you to share, to lean on each other when the cold pressed in. You return to the hearth, the fire's glow reflecting in your eyes. You add another twist of hay, watching it flare briefly, and pause to listen to the wind. The crackle of the flames is a language you've learned to read steady now, but hungry soon. You think of Clara, of Martha, of your daughter's small hands, all part of this quiet fight for warmth. Imagine tending a fire that's your family's survival. How would you feel? Drop a comment with your thoughts, and if you're enjoying this journey, please subscribe for more. For now, you settle by the hearth, the fire's warmth a fragile promise, knowing you'll tend it through the night, as countless others did before you. You pull on layers of wool and fur, each stitch a labor of love from someone's hands. How did settlers dress to defy the winter's bite? It's a January morning in 1879, and you're in a small cabin on the Montana frontier where the cold seeps through every crack, sharp as a knife. You stand by the hearth, its faint warmth barely reaching your fingers as you prepare to face the day. The air smells of wood smoke and damp wool, and your breath hangs in the dim light. Dressing for winter in the Wild West is no simple task, it's a ritual, a shield against a world that could freeze you in moments. You start with a pair of long johns, hand-knit by your sister last fall. The wool scratches against your skin, coarse but warm, its fibers catching on your calloused hands. Over this you pull a dress, its skirt patched with scraps from an old shirt, each seam a testament to careful work. Women like you, across the Dakotas and Nebraska in the 1870s and 1880s, spent long evenings by candlelight, their needles flashing as they mended and remade clothing. Your neighbor, Sarah, a mother of 3, taught you to double stitch for strength, her fingers nimble despite the cold. She shared a story of her grandmother, who once sewed a coat from a single buffalo hide, its weight a burden, but its warmth a lifeline. You reach for a shawl, its edges frayed but heavy with wool, from a sheep you helped shear last spring. The shawl's warmth wraps you like an embrace, though it itches where it brushes your neck. Layering is survival here. Settlers learned to pile on anything that held heat. Men wore vests of rabbit fur. Women, like Sarah, crafted mittens from scraps of deerskin. You slip on a pair of mittens now, their insides lined with bits of old quilt, soft against your knuckles. The weight of these layers presses on your shoulders, slowing your movements, but you know the cold outside is far heavier. You glance at the buffalo robe hanging by the door, its thick, matted fur a deep brown that smells faintly of earth and animal. Buffalo robes were prized in the Wild West, especially after the great herds began to dwindle in the 1870s. You remember a trader in town, his hands rough as he bartered for one, saying it could keep a family alive through a blizzard. You drape it over your shoulders now, its bulk making you feel small but protected. The robe was a gift from a neighbor, part of the unspoken rule of these plains. Share what you have, whether it's a coat, a blanket, or a warm corner by the fire. Communities here are tight-knit, bound by necessity. Last week, you joined a sewing circle at Eliza's cabin, where women swapped fabric scraps and stories. One brought a child's coat, too small for her growing son, and passed it to a younger mother. Another shared a pair of boots, their solace patched with rawhide. These exchanges were common, a quiet strength in places like Wyoming or Kansas, where winter could isolate you for months. You think of those women now, their laughter warming the room as much as the fire, their hands weaving not just cloth but trust. You step toward the door, the floor creaking under your boots. The cold waits outside, ready to sting your face and numb your toes. You pull a scarf knitted by your aunt back east over your nose, its faint lavender scent a whisper of home. Each piece you wear carries a story, a memory of someone who helped you prepare. How did they find the strength to face this cold day after day? The resilience of these settlers, especially the women who stitched and mended, was as vital as any fire or wall. You pause, feeling the weight of your clothing, the way it holds you together against the winter's pull. The buffalo robe shifts slightly, its fur brushing your cheek. You're ready, or as ready as you can be, to step into the snow. What's a piece of clothing that makes you feel safe in the cold? Share in the comments, and if this story warms your heart, consider subscribing. For now, you take a breath, the scarf muffling the chill, and open the door, carrying the warmth of those who came before you. The wind rattles your cabin, a low groan that shakes the sod walls, but the scent of a meager stew offers comfort. How did families stretch their food to last the winter? It's March 1881, deep in the Wyoming frontier, and you stand in your small kitchen, the cold seeping through the floorboards. The hearth's faint glow casts shadows on a pot of simmering beans, their earthy aroma mingling with the tang of wood smoke. Your stomach aches, not just from hunger, but from the weight of rationing, knowing each spoonful must carry you through weeks of snow and isolation. You're a settler, and in this Wild West winter, food is as precious as fire. You check the pantry, a corner of the cabin lined with rough shelves. It's nearly bare, holding only a sack of cornmeal, a few shriveled potatoes, and a jar of pickled beets, their ruby glow a reminder of last summer's labor. Women like you, across Nebraska and the Dakotas in the 1870s and 1880s, were the keepers of these stores, their ingenuity the difference between survival and starvation. You learn from your neighbor, Hannah, a mother of 5, how to preserve meat by salting it, layering strips of venison in a barrel with coarse salt you traded for in town. The meat's sharp, briny smell lingers on your hands as you slice a small piece for the stew, careful to use only what's needed. Hunting now is perilous, the snow too deep, the wind too fierce. You rely on what you stored last, fall-dried beans, corn, a bit of jerked beef. You kneel by the hearth, grinding corn with a hand mill, the coarse grains scraping under the stone. The work is slow, your arms aching, but the rhythm soothes you. You think of Hannah's stories, how she baked hardtack flour, water, and salt pressed into hard squares that could last months. You tried it once, the dry, tasteless bite sticking in your throat, but it filled your children's bellies when a blizzard trapped you for days. The root cellar dug beneath the cabin is your lifeline. You climbed down its ladder yesterday, the air damp and cool, to fetch carrots and turnips buried in sand to keep them fresh. Women like Hannah and your aunt back in Kansas mastered these cellars, packing them with vegetables and jars of preserves, pickled cabbage, apples and syrup, anything to break the monotony of winter's diet. You stir the stew now, adding a pinch of dried herbs, their faint scent a whisper of summer. The pot bubbles softly, and you pause, listening to the wind, wondering how long your stores will last. Blizzards in the 1880s could cut off supplies for weeks, leaving homesteads like yours to fend alone. Community was a quiet savior. Last month, you traded a loaf of cornbread for a neighbor's smoked fish, its rich flavor a rare treat. Across the plains, settlers shared what little they had: a sack of flour, a jar of jam, knowing hunger spared no one. You remember a night at Eliza's cabin, where women gathered to swap recipes and scraps, their laughter warming the room as much as the stew they shared. That sense of togetherness lingers in you now, easing the knot of worry as you count your supplies. How did they face this uncertainty, meal after meal? You ladle the stew into a bowl, its warmth seeping through the clay. The beans are soft, the meat sparse, but it's enough for tonight. You think of the children sleeping nearby, their trust in you a heavy gift. Women in the Wild West carried this burden, stretching every grain, every root to keep their families alive. You sit by the hearth, the fires crackle a steady companion, and take a slow bite, savoring the faint saltiness. The wind howls on, but this meal, however small, is a victory, a spark of hope in winter's grip. You set the bowl down, your eyes tracing the pantry's shadows. The cold presses in, but so does the memory of those who taught you Hannah, Eliza, the women whose hands fed the frontier. What's a meal that feels like home to you, no matter how simple? Let us know in the comments and subscribe for more stories of survival. For now, you rise to cover the pot, saving every drop for tomorrow. Knowing each bite is a step toward spring, a testament to the resilience woven into this land. The snow traps you inside, a heavy blanket sealing your cabin, but tonight you hear fiddle music calling, faint through the wind's low moan. How did isolated settlers find strength in each other? It's a February evening in 1882, somewhere on the Kansas prairie, and you're bundled in your warmest shawl, stepping out into the stinging cold. The air smells of frost and pine, and your boots crunch through snow as you follow the glow of lanterns to a neighbor's barn. Winter in the Wild West is a lonely force, weeks of silence stretching across the plains. But tonight, your community gathers, a flicker of warmth against the dark. You feel the pull of connection as vital as any fire. The barn door creaks open, and you're greeted by the scent of hay and candle wax, the soft chatter of voices rising like steam. Inside, a dozen families huddle, their faces lit by flickering light, laughter mingling with the scrape of a fiddle. You see Mary, your neighbor, her hands clapping to the rhythm, her smile wide despite the lines of worry etched from months of cold. In the 1870s and 1880s, across Kansas and Colorado, such barn dances were rare winter gifts, moments when settlers pushed back against isolation. You join the circle, your feet tapping on the packed earth floor, the music wrapping around you like a quilt. Women, especially, wove the threads of community. You think of the sewing circle at Eliza's cabin last week, where you sat with 5 others, needles flashing in the dim light. The room smelled of wool and coffee, and stories flowed as freely as the thread tailies of blizzards survived, of children born of letters from far-off kin. Eliza shared a letter from her sister in Missouri, its pages worn from reading, each word a lifeline to a world beyond the snow. Women across the frontier wrote such letters, their pens scratching late into the night, binding scattered families with ink and hope. You've written your own, sealing them with wax, praying they reach your brother back east. You sway to the music now, the fiddle's tune bright and defiant. A child spins nearby, her patched dress twirling, and you smile, remembering how you gave her mother a spare blanket last month. Mutual aid was the heartbeat of these plains neighbors, sharing flour, mending a torn coat, or checking on a widow after a storm. Historical accounts from Colorado tell of families pooling firewood or taking turns hosting gatherings, each act a stitch in the fabric of survival. You feel it here, in the warmth of shared glances, the way hands clasp in a reel, the barn's walls holding back the wind's howl. The candles flicker, casting shadows that dance like memories. You sit for a moment, catching your breath, the hay beneath you prickly but grounding. Someone passes you a tin cup of cider, its sharp warmth spreading through your chest. You listen as an older man tells the story of a buffalo hunt years ago, his voice low and steady, drawing nods and soft laughter. These stories, traded like currency, kept spirits alive in the long winters. You think of the women who told them, mothers, sisters, wives whose voices carried resilience, their words a reminder that no one faced the cold alone. How did they find such strength in shared moments? You rise to join another dance, your shawl slipping slightly, the cold air brushing your neck. The barn feels alive, its warmth not just from Bada's but from the trust built here. You catch Mary's eye and she nods, her hand squeezing yours as you pass. This community, scattered across frozen fields, is a fragile but fierce thing held together by these nights, these stories, these small acts of care. What's a tradition that brings you closer to others? Share in the comments, and if you're loving this journey, hit subscribe for more. For now, you let the music carry you. The fiddle's notes a promise that, even in winter's grip, connection endures, as it did for those who danced before you. The world outside your door vanishes and a white roar of blizzard has come. Can you outlast its fury? It's January 1888, and you're in a sod house on the Dakota prairie, the wind screaming like a living thing tearing at the walls. The air inside is thick with the smell of smoke and damp wool, but the cold creeps through every seam, chilling your fingers as you press against the door. You're a settler, and this is no ordinary storm. It's the kind of blizzard that swallows the world, like the one they'll later call the schoolhouse blizzard, a terror that swept the plains, catching families unaware. Your heart pounds as you brace for what's next. You check the rope tied to the door, its coarse fibers rough under your hands. It stretches to the barn, 50 yards away, a lifeline through the blinding snow. You learned this trick from your neighbor Clara, who told you how her brother got lost last winter, wandering just steps from home. The rope is your guide to the animals, cows and horses that need feeding, but stepping outside feels like tempting fate. The wind's howl is deafening, a disorienting wail that drowns out thought, and the snow stings your face like needles when you crack the door. You pull your scarf tighter, its wool scratching your chin, and test the knot, praying it holds. Inside, your family huddles near the hearth, the fire's glow a fragile defense. You pile blankets over your children, their small faces pale but trusting. You think of the women who faced such storms, their courage woven into stories from 1888, when the schoolhouse blizzard struck with deadly speed. Historical accounts tell of mothers tying children to their waists, leading them home from school through whiteouts, or women like Anna, who saved her family by piling every quilt and coat over them, their breath warming the air beneath. You mimic her now, tucking a buffalo robe around your youngest, its heavy fur a shield against the chill. You move to the window, but its useless snow cakes the glass, the world beyond a swirling void. The storm's unpredictability is what terrifies you most. That January, settlers across Nebraska and the Dakotas were caught off guard. A warm morning turned deadly by noon, temperatures plunging to 20 below. You've prepared as best you can, food rationed, fuel stacked, but the blizzard tests your resolve. You check the fire, adding a twist of hay, its grassy scent flaring briefly. The flames crackle, but the cold presses closer, seeping through the sod walls you built with such care. How did they endure this fear, this waiting? You remember Clara's advice, stay low, conserve warmth. You gather your family in a tight circle, bodies pressed together, sharing heat like a single heartbeat. The wind's roar shakes the cabin, and you hum a soft tune to calm your children, your voice trembling but steady. Women in the Wild West often led these moments, their quiet strength holding families together. You think of a story from a Colorado settler who survived a 3-day blizzard by burning fence posts and singing hymns, her voice a beacon for her family's hope. You feel that same resolve now, fragile but fierce, as you rub your daughter's hands to warm them. The storm rages on, hours blurring into a timeless struggle. You check the rope again, knowing you'll need to reach the barn soon. The thought of stepping into the whiteout makes your chest tighten, but the animals depend on you. You wrap a second scarf around your face, the wool damp from your breath, and grip the rope, its texture grounding you. The blizzard's fury is humbling, a reminder of nature's power, yet you feel the stubborn endurance of those who faced it before settlers, who roped their way through snow, who huddled and hoped. Have you ever faced a storm that tested your strength? Share your story in the comments and subscribe to keep exploring history's lessons. You pause by the door. The winds howl a challenge you must meet. The fire sputters behind you, and you glance back at your family, their faces lit by its glow. This moment, this fight, is what defined the Wild West, not just the land, but the people who faced its trials. You step out, the snow biting your cheeks, the rope your only guide, carrying the courage of countless others who endured. The ice cracks and a warm breeze whispers of spring. What did this brutal winter teach you about survival and yourself? It's late March 1882, and you stand at the door of your sod house on the Dakota prairie, the air soft with the scent of damp earth and new grass. The snow, once a heavy shroud, melts into rivulets, pooling around green shoots that pierce the soil. Your breath no longer clouds the air, and the sun's gentle warmth touches your face, a quiet promise after months of cold. You pause, listening to the distant babble of a thawing creek, feeling the weight of winter lift. The winter was brutal, stretching from October's first frost to April's last blizzard, each day a test of will. You built your home from sod, its walls a bulwark against the wind, and layered wool and fur to keep the cold at bay. You rationed beans and hardtack, stretching meager stores, and tended a fire that flickered like hope itself. Women like Mary, Clara, and Eliza were your teachers, their hands steady as they sewed, cooked, and shared what little they had. In the 1870s and 1880s, across Kansas and Wyoming, women's work mending, preserving, comforting was the unseen thread of survival, rarely sung but always vital. You step outside, your boots sinking into soft mud, the earth alive beneath you. The prairie, once a frozen sea, now hums with possibility. You remember the community that carried you through neighbors, trading flour, gathering for barn dances, their laughter a defiance of isolation. Historical accounts tell of towns cut off by snow, yet spring brought relief, like the train that reached De Smet in May 1881, its whistle a song of salvation. You joined a spring celebration, voices raised in joy, echoing the resilience that defined this frontier. How did they hold fast to hope through such darkness? Now, as you watch a bird flit across the sky, you reflect on the lessons of winter. It taught you endurance, the kind that grows from small acts, stirring a stew, knotting a rope, sharing a story. Women, especially, showed you how to weave strength from scarcity, their quiet courage shaping homes and hearts. You feel their presence in the warming air, their stories part of the land's awakening. Lavra Ingall's Wilder wrote of such a spring. The fear and suffering of the long winter seemed to rise like a dark cloud and float away on the music. Spring had come. Her words linger, a reminder that hardship births hope. You kneel to touch a blade of grass, its green vibrant against your weathered hand. The Wild West was not just a land of struggle, but of connection, of people who faced nature's fury together. Their endurance lives in you, a calm certainty that you too can weather any storm. Thank you for joining this journey through the Wild West's winter. Subscribe for more stories and share in the comments. What's a lesson from history that inspires you? For now, you rise, the breeze soft on your skin, carrying the wisdom of winter into spring's embrace.